We are trying this again, having been cut off by those nasty YouTube gremlins. Come hither, tennis fans. Sorry I was cut off on the last one. Let's do a little pre-match commentary. This is really pre-match at this point. There's only 2 minutes until the match starts. Well, they'll start a little late, so it's actually perfect. Sorry about that. Not sure what happened, Cultura. As I was saying, it's the YouTube gremlins. But in any case, let's crunch the aggregate numbers for the last four standing here at this U.S. Open so that we can understand these matches. In that perspective, that's at least what I wanted to offer you in this fairly short stream. I don't think there's a lot of people on right now, but I wanted to do a little bit right now. I'm going to try to come back later tonight and do more. If not, it will be tomorrow, of course. We'll be talking, hopefully at length. I want to do a detailed discussion of the final, however the chips may fall tonight. So let's look at some of the key numbers for the last four standing here and do a comparison just to kind of understand. Now, we'll do it in the context of the semifinals, of course, so that we can understand maybe better some of the advantages that these players have going in. On the first serve percentage, Delpo leads all of the final four players. He's at 70% in the tournament. Nadal and Djokovic are fairly close there behind, 65% for them. In terms of first serve points won, again, in the aggregate, across the course of the tournament, Delpo leads this bunch as well with 83% of a first serve percentage. Nadal has 70%. So Delpo, again, needs to absolutely exploit all of the advantages of his first serve in this match against Nadal without question. So that means doing what he did in 2009 with his first serve, which is fend off all of the break points, save the break points. Delpo needs to deliver that clutch tennis because, as we'll talk about in a minute, and the match is going to start in a few minutes, though I don't imagine anything too significant will happen. I do imagine this will go at least to 4 between Nadal and Delpo. But in terms of the first serve returns, as to the whole number of points won by each player on first serve returns, as I was discussing yesterday, Nishikori is actually the leader of the entire tournament on the first serve points won, and he has won 124 first serve points, responding to first serves, receiving points, that is. So Djokovic and Nadal are fairly close behind with 117 each. Again, first serve return points won, and Delpo is the lowest of the bunch with 102 first serve points receiving won. So on the second serve points won, again for the server, it's Nadal and Delpo that are tied, in fact, with 57% on the second serve points won. So they're doing about just as well on their second serves. Djokovic is better on the second serve with a 60% aggregate tournament average. Well, with respect to returning second serves, this is a key component of what decides, or the factors that decide who win these kind of tournaments in the modern day and age. Nadal and Djokovic lead the pack in terms of the number of points won in responding to a second serve, and that is 116 points that each of them have won across the course of the tournament. Delpo's won 100 points, and Nishikori is pretty close behind with 97 points. In terms of break points won, now we're getting to the heart of the matter with break points won, again, across the whole tournament. And Nishikori leads. Nishikori leads, for those of you just tuning in, Nishikori leads the tournament and leads the Final Four in first serve return points won, which is a very valuable metric, as well as break points won. So on the return, Nishikori is very devastating, a real threat. Djokovic is going to have to watch out. But in a way, it's going to be a similar style of play on both sides of the court in terms of the base of the game, the predicate of their wins for both Nishikori and Djokovic. It always comes in on the returns, but Nishikori really excels in the first serve return points. But what we really want to look at, and I think the most valuable statistics, and they don't provide them at the U.S. Open. I had to kind of crunch them myself for you, and I wanted to communicate these numbers, and they are basically the breakpoint conversion rates. Well, they do post the conversion rates, but the conversion rate is not the greatest number to look at, in fact. And as it happens, only one of the players in the Final Four has a greater than 50% conversion rate, and that is, once again, Nishikori. And in fact, he's not listed on the site in terms of the event statistics. He's not listed as being at 55%. They missed Nishikori's conversion rate, which is pretty impressive. But in terms of the actual number of break points created, I think that's a very good metric. And that was the metric that was the factor really behind Djokovic's win at Wimbledon. And it's really one of the main factors behind why Djokovic wins tournaments, period. It's the number of break points created, which is a measure of how much pressure is being applied. So let's go through the two semifinals in terms of these numbers, both the conversion rate and the number of break points created. Well, first, Nadal versus Del Potro. Nadal has about a 45% conversion rate across the course of the tournament. He really had a great conversion against Pospisil. He was 71%. Against Khachanov, it was a little worse, 38%. Against Basilashvili, 38%. And it was way down with Thiem at 29%. But the conversion rate is only part of this. We have to also look at the whole number of break points created. And in that department, Nadal is very impressive. He has created, over the course of this tournament, 59 break points against his opponents. A particularly impressive demonstration in this regard was, again, the match against Khachanov, 13 break points created, and then against Basilashvili, 16 break points created. In the match against Thiem, it was 17 break points created, and that's sort of understandable because the match with Thiem was so long. But those are impressive in terms of the number of break points that Nadal is creating. Well, Delpo has not created that many, but he's close. Delpo is doing well in his return game. He's created 54 break points over the course of the tournament, and he's got a better conversion rate than Nadal. So he's only four below Nadal in terms of the number of break points he's created, and he has a higher conversion rate against Nadal. A couple of the highlights for Delpo was, for example, his match against Coric, where he created 15 break points on the Coric serve, converted 40% of them. In his first match against Donald Young, he had a 50%. Delpo was at a 50% conversion rate and created 14 break points. I don't think the match has started yet. I'll keep refreshing here. As soon as the match has started, I will probably sign off, and we can start watching the tennis brilliance tonight. But just to finish this off, so yeah, with respect to Delpo and Nadal, listen, I think Nadal has his work cut out for him. I do think that Nadal is posting some great aggregate numbers overall. He's creating, again, more break points than Delpo. He's got the winning record against Delpo, particularly at the U.S. Open. I think the thing might just rise or fall on whether, as in 2009, Delpo can save break points against his serve, because I think he's doing quite well in terms of his aggregate number of break points converted and his conversion rate. Only one person in the Final Four has a higher conversion rate than Delpo, and it's Nishikori. So That's the upshot of the Nadal versus Delpo match in terms of some of the key numbers. Well, what about Djokovic versus Nishikori? Djokovic has created the most break points of all of the players in the Final Four, and this is to be expected. He's the greatest returner in the game. He's created 8 more break points during this tournament than Nadal. He's created 67. He's got a 47% conversion rate, which is actually pretty good. It's better than Nadal's over the course of the tournament. In every one of his matches except one, he has gone into the double digits in terms of his break points created. And in one match against Millman, he created 20 break points against the Millman serve. He created 16 break points against the Tennis Sandgren serve. So 67 in total and a 47% conversion rate. Those are the numbers of a winner of this tournament, to be honest. If he can sustain that and continue to create all that exposure on his opponent's serves, well, that's a nice way to pave a way to this trophy, folks. Well, Nishikori is looking very respectable as well. He has created as many break points as Rafael Nadal, and he has a higher conversion rate. So Nishikori, obviously the person that most people are considering the real underdog. I mean, Delpo's kind of in there. He's a previous champion. But Nishikori is considered the underdog. But with respect to some of the key stats, the number of break points won, first, he leads the pack. The break point conversion rate, he leads the pack. And the first serve return percentage, number of first serve return points won. It's not a percentage. He also leads the pack. And moreover, he has a very respectable number of break points that he's created, as many as the great Rafael Nadal, whom some believe is one of the greatest returners in the game. So Nishikori has some numbers that do suggest that he is something of a concealed danger here. Djokovic is going to have to watch his tail. That much is true. Patrick said something about me being excited for the matches. Well, I'm not sure whether I'm ecstatic and excited, but I'm certainly looking forward to them. I'm certainly looking forward to the final. We've got one comment, Farzan, Delpo will win for sure. Well, there is a suggestion here. When I look at these numbers, when I look at the aggregate stats for this tournament, Delpo looks very good. Obviously, he's leading in all the first serve percentages, all the first serve numbers, but his return game looks very impressive as well. He is creating a lot of break points, and he is converting them at a rate higher than Nadal. He is doing a great job, and there's been some real flashes of brilliance from Delpo in this tournament. So that's one respectable position, Farzan. But with respect to Nishikori, I do think there's something in these numbers as I look at them and think about them that does suggest that Nishikori could surprise us. This thing might go to 5. But again, it's going to be kind of a battle between the two Djokovic styles of play. There's so much of what Nishikori does that is based on the return game. Well, Nishikori's good in response and the best in the tournament in response to first serves. He gets them back, and he wins points on the opponent's first serve at a higher rate than anybody in the tournament so far. But Djokovic's real secret is not so much in the first serve, but backing up that second serve, and that's where he leads. He has some really great numbers on the second serve. Return points won. At this point, he's tied with Nadal on the return. Second serve points won. Second serve points won on Djokovic's serve. He leads this pack. He's got 60% of his second serve points won while he's serving. So he's great on the second serve. Nishikori seems to have a special talent returning first serves and winning first serve points when receiving. Yes, it's kind of interesting. So we'll have to just see how that kind of shakes out with respect to Djokovic and Nishikori. They kind of complement each other in a way such that maybe Nishikori is not going to be able to stop the march of Djokovic on his second serve points, and he's got such a good percentage on those second serve points. Maybe Nishikori will post a good percentage returning and winning first serve points in response to Djokovic, but potentially it just won't be good enough when combined with the very impressive Djokovic second serve and the backing up that he can execute behind his second serve. So, listen, it could be a close match. You do have Nishikori, as I've crunched these numbers, you do have Nishikori seeming to be a person that must be respected and dealt with very seriously by Djokovic first, and then, of course, if Nishikori gets through Djokovic and into this final, well, the player on the other side of the court, whether it be Nadal or Delpo, is going to have to take Nishikori very seriously too. But as it stands, it does look like Djokovic is in a good position now, folks. As I look at these numbers, Nadal's hanging in there, of course. I think he's had some tougher matches, so he's going to potentially be a little more fatigued, but they've got plenty of rest at this point. So it's a very close call in this tournament, and that's kind of one of the reasons that I'm still considering all this right on the eve of the match, the semifinal matches today. I'm trying to still kind of make heads or tails of all this. There's such close matchups. Djokovic is obviously the favorite going in with Nishikori, but the more you look at these numbers, the more you look at what Nishikori's been doing in the tournament, the more you begin to believe that he could be, as I'm calling him, the snake in the grass, a real and substantial concealed danger in this tournament. We'll know soon enough. But with respect to Nadal and Delpo, it does seem, the numbers do suggest, the form of Nadal does suggest that he will be able to set the tower from Tandil aside ultimately, even if it takes 4 or 5. But again, as in 2009, if Delpo can save the break points at 100%, and as he did in 2009, really step up in to the Nadal second serve and start winning a lot of those points. He was very solid on the second serve return points against Nadal in 2009. So, listen, it's a close call, and I guess the contingency is, if Delpo is playing wonderfully, if he is basically meeting all the expectations and he's meeting those criteria that I've kind of laid out for him here, mainly delivering the clutch tennis on the break points because Rafa will create them, but also really stepping in to the Nadal second serve and trying to come at least close to the second serve win percentage that he posted in 2009 against Nadal when he beat Nadal. If he can even come close to that, I think that was in the 70s, it's like the low 70s or something, which is just really unheard of. So if Del Potro can do those things, I think he can give Nadal a lot of problems. But as it stands, folks, I think Delpo performing that well is not likely. It's just not likely that he's going to be able to muster that kind of tennis, particularly when Nadal's on the other side of the court applying constant pressure and just never giving up. Well, we'll see what happens, folks. Anything can happen in this game. It's part of why I really love watching these matches. The match has not begun quite yet. Let's see. I'm refreshing now. You let me know when it begins because I'll probably want to stop. I did watch the Naomi Osaka match the other night. She is now into the final against Serena Williams. I saw a comment on that, and that's really exciting to see Osaka doing so well. Of course, she was the winner of an event. Was it? I think she was the winner in Miami. No, it was Indian Wells. It was either Indian Wells or Miami, but she posted a very, very significant win earlier in the year. She's been getting better and better, and her scores in this tournament very much suggest that she is just dominating. She's very much dominating her opponents. But in terms of break points saved, and I talked about that in connection with Delpo, and I'm saying that Delpo needs to be very precise and very careful about saving those break points against Nadal, because Rafa's going to create them. But that's one of the key to the 2009 wins by Delpo over Nadal are the break points won. But talk about break points saved. It's Naomi Osaka who did that last night against Madison Keys. There was so much pressure being applied to the Osaka serve, but she just delivered, playing a lot more points on her own serve than Keys was having to play on her own serve, but ultimately coming through in a straight set victory that looked pretty clean when you look at the scores. So that was real inspiring to see. She's kind of a interesting personality. I saw her interviewed. Naomi Osaka, this is a potential rising star on the women's circuit who is into the U.S. Open final. The first, is it Hawaiian, I believe? First Hawaiian woman to be in the final of the U.S. Open. But she has an interesting personality. It's a little kind of cutesy. It's very cutesy. She's got a very high voice, kind of like Barbie almost. To be quite honest, there are people that are saying that she's got a really cute and interesting personality. I wasn't. It sort of rubbed me the wrong way, to be honest, for a tennis player. That kind of real cute. It's kind of a cute Asian sort of way. That I don't know, that I associate it with dolls that my daughter likes to watch on YouTube and stuff. I mean, I'm not sure it's it's the most kind of forceful personality. They asked her about Serena Williams, and I think Naomi Osaka said, "I love you." Like the interviewer said, do you want to say anything to Serena Williams? And I think Naomi said, "I love you." Well, that's an interesting thing to say to your opponent in the final of a Grand Slam tournament. That's not the kind of outlook that I hope Naomi brings to the court in this match, in this final, but it's going to be epic. Listen, folks, Nadal versus Del Potro has begun. Nadal is serving. I'm going to have to tune into the match. Nadal's serving, and I have a score of love 15, which means he lost the first point. He's lost the second point. So Delpo's going to get into the Nadal serve right from the outset. That's a good thing, but obviously not at all an indicator of the outcome of the match. Nadal gets broken all the time early, and it's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to be broken here. Let's see. Will Delpo go up love 40? I'm taking bets. It's possible because Nadal has shown a propensity in this tournament to come out a little dazed and confused, and Thiem was able to really daze and confuse the great Nadal right to the end of a set that ended with no games on the board for Nadal whatsoever. It was the first bagel for Nadal in a while. I'm not sure how long it's been, but it really does. It really does suggest there was something strange. Of course, Thiem was playing really well in that first set. So again, it's kind of a combination of factors. Well, you've got a 15-30 point here. Again, in the first game, I'm going to have to go down and watch this because I owe that to you guys. I'm going to have to do some comments on it. I want to do some comments. I really want to see how this shapes up. But we will notice how critical, again, this 15-30 point is. One of the reasons the 15-30 point is so critical is how often it comes up. You might say, well, love 30 is even better in terms of how critical it is. Well, true, but love 30 is not happening as much as 15-30. 15-30 is all over the place. As soon as you start looking at these matches and these games and analyzing them through the perspective and prism of that critical on 15-30, which Delpo has just triumphed in, he is now at a double break point. He converted his 15-30 in returning into a double break point. We'll see what Nadal does. But again, it's absolutely of no moment. These early games are not at all indicators, particularly with Nadal. Nadal, as we've seen, can be totally slaughtered in the first set and still come back and win. It can be sheep to the slaughter. It can be a total bloodbath for him, and he still comes back and wins. My thought is Nadal's going to save one of these. He saves one. Delpo now has a second break point. But one of the critical things about the 15-30 point is not only whether you ultimately win the point as a returner and convert one of the two break points, because often it just happens that you don't convert one of the first two, but then just in terms of the dynamic that's partially created by the 15-30 point, the returner is able to get into the, obviously to deuce and then into the ad court again in his own advantage and then takes the break after a deuce or a deuce cycle. So that happens too. Well, let's see what Nadal can do. Again, Nadal needs to save the break points too. Both of these players need to deliver that clutch tennis. Where will the game go? It's basically advantage Delpo. Will he take advantage of his second break point? Probably not, because Nadal's not going to let him. Delpo does. Delpo's broken in the first game. I'm going to depart now and watch this because I want to see this in detail. But for what it's worth at this point, we really can't draw any conclusions about Delpo breaking in this first game. It's just not indicative. It's not probative because of how Nadal plays. He does take a while to get warmed up sometimes, and most of all, he was able to come out from under team the other night, and that was after 6-love. So this one's going to go. It's not going to be a straight setter unless Nadal is having some real problems, unless his knee's giving him a hard time. So we'll just have to see what happens. I'll look forward to getting back with you guys potentially later tonight, depending on whether I can negotiate it with my wife and kids, but definitely tomorrow. In fact, we might do a couple of episodes tomorrow. And thank you, probative, great word. You might be a lawyer too then, Robert? Okay. It's a word that only lawyers use. But yes, it will shake out as it does, folks. But listen, Rafael Nadal is not one to be bossed around these tennis courts, and he's not going to let Del Potro do it for too long. Not for long at all. We'll see what Del Potro can do. Let's see if the anti-consolidator can come back against the tower from Tandil. Well, Nadal, as the anti-consolidator, has not been firing on all his spark plugs this week and last week, but he's delivered some of the clutch tennis. The Khachanov match did feature that, and he was able to fight back against breaks. Sometimes not in the next game, but that's what he specializes in doing. So he's already won the first point against Delpo. He'll probably break back. I will look forward to talking with you guys very soon. Drop comments. Enjoy the matches. Have a great Friday night, and I may just be back at you in the wee hours if this is real inspiring stuff, if there's some stuff that sort of blows my mind that happens in these matches. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of time also tomorrow to sort of cogitate on this, what is going to be a very historic final. Of course, we're predicting it probably to be Nadal versus Djokovic, but there's an outside chance neither Djokovic nor Nadal could be in this final, folks. Wouldn't that be interesting? I love this game because it produces such unpredictability so often. Well, I am going to sign off for now. It was great having you guys. It was great to hear your comments. Thank you. Continue commenting on the post. I'll do a little post-production, and this video will be up in no time. Thanks for tolerating the technical difficulties, and look forward to seeing you soon. Signing off from Boston. Bye-bye.